Whispers of time past, step out into the night. War through fog so fast, stay alert, keep it tight. The dark woods call to you. Stay away if you want to live. Shadows creep, don't pursue. To the night, secrets they give. The chilling winds embrace, heart races as you tread. The moon's ghostly face, silent fears widely spread. Whispers in the air, feel them all around. Wonder if you dare, and hush without a sound. The dark woods call to you. Stay away if you want to live. Shadows creep, don't pursue. To the night, secrets they give. Whisper songs till moon rise. Stay still, stay quiet. Listen to the night skies. Hear all the months no riot. Whispers of time's past, step out into the night. War through fog so fast, stay alert, keep it tight. The dark woods call to you. Stay away if you want to live. You want to live. Shadows creep, don't pursue. Through the night to the night, secrets they give. Feel the chilling winds embrace, heart races as you tread. In the moon's ghostly face, silent fears widely spread. Mysteries in the air, footsteps on a crackling path. Sense the unseen stare in a night's quiet path. The dark woods call to you, call to you. Stay away if you want to live. You want to live. Shadows creep, don't pursue. Through the night to the night, secrets they give. The chilling winds embrace, heart races as you tread. In the moon's ghostly face, silent fears widely spread. Mysteries in the air, footsteps on a crackling path. Sense the unseen stare in the night's quiet path. The dark woods call to you, call to you. Stay away if you want to live. You want to live. Shadows creep, don't pursue. To the night, to the night, secrets they give.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Hopefully you're
Greetings
still
from
with us.
South Carolina. Welcome to the show.
I love that intro. I was like, oh, wait, we're doing a show. I was
Well,
so busy watching the intro.
Dan gave me the videos put to it, and I wrote the song on Suno. So
It's what we call a collaboration.
right? So
Sarah taught me that there word.
No, let's call it Cindy.
That was a Cindy for sure.
Exactly. Sesame Street reference for all you fans out there.
Oh yeah, big fan.
Tracy, Bubala, how you doing? Other brother Daryl, good to see you, man.
I'm also trying to live stream this on my channel by using a phone, and the connection problems is like a little bit 50-50. So I hope everybody who's watching this over on my channel comes over to Sarah's channel or your channel, Thrash, where they can see this a lot clearer.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Right?
Only they can see it on mine.
Right? And,
Indeed.
and we got a geek in the house. We got Esmeralda. And I don't know. I'm just hitting buttons at this point. We're jamming. We're jamming's in the house. Woo woo. All right.
What do you mean?
Well, I feel lucky anybody showed up because with my shows are cursed. You know that. If anything bad's going to happen, it's going to happen. Last time I was going to do a show, a hurricane come blew everything away.
Right.
So what are we starting off with today, Thrash? Classic Universal Monsters?
Classic Universal Monsters, specifically the kingpin of them all, Count Dracula, played by iconic Eastern European diva. And I'm going to say it wrong. Tug, please forgive
Sarah,
me.
I'm here.
Bela Lugosi.
Hours ago.
I'm actually here.
Right. Okay. We just got the message. Where were you? I do now. Okay. Clever.
Now,
anyways.
I just got a text from Sarah that asked me if I was coming.
Well, obviously.
Yeah.
Now, my quick question is, we all grew up with these things. I mean, for crying out loud, most of us, it wasn't even our parents' movies. The Universal Monsters were our grandparents' movies. So where do you contextually, when you first think of Universal Monsters, which one do you think of, and who were you watching it with? Your mom, your dad, your grandfather? Who was your first exposure to Universal horror films?
Sarah can go first because she's a ladies first.
Yeah, okay. Let's see here. Well, I gotta be real with you guys. I didn't really watch much of that stuff with my parents. My dad was really into westerns and like Dirty Harry and stuff like that, right? And my mom never really that much into horror to begin with. But I have to say that I'm going to correct that and start nowadays to do that. So as far as classic, horror for Dracula stuff goes, I'm here to learn mostly tonight.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good answer. Good answer.
Thank you. I went to school.
How about you, Danny?
Me, I'd say my first real experience with the classic Universal Monsters come at a real young age. My mom and my dad got divorced, and I wound up with a stepdad. But I had the greatest stepdad in the world, and he loved horror movies, especially the old 50s and 60s B movies. And they were this show called Shock Theater that come on every Sunday. And it's where I every Sunday from 1973 to probably to the 80s, I'd watch Sunday afternoon. Even after I moved out the house, I'd go back on Sundays, eat dinner with mom and dad, and watch horror movies with my stepdad. It was kind of a thing we did every Sunday, and that was my first exposure to like Frankenstein, the Wolfman, Dracula with Bela Lugosi. How's that tongue said? Bela Lugosi. With Bella. And but my first one I really remember as a kid, before you get to that age where you're actually watching the big spider get burned or watching a monster movie. I remember Abbott and Costello meet was it like Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein?
Frankenstein, yes.
But
We had all of them.
All of them. And that was really, I think, my youngest experience with the Universal Monsters was seeing the Abbott and Costello stuff. Because I was watching all the Abbott and Costello stuff at 6, 7 years old.
There was a station when I was growing up that every Sunday would show an Abbott and Costello movie, and that one was one of my favorites, which is ironic because it was Lou Costello's least favorite. He didn't want to do it. He said, and I quote, "I've seen funnier things on a tombstone." But I thought they were great in it. I thought Bella was at his best. I thought Lon Chaney Jr. was at his best. And again, you have to remember that movie, that wasn't contemporary. That was like 1948, I want to say. You have to remember the first the first Dracula movie came out in 1931. So it was substantially later. They're both in black and white, so you like to think, oh yeah, they came out at the same time. No, it was much later. But I got to tell you, Lugosi still had it, as did Creighton Hull Jr. or Lon Chaney Jr. The one thing they didn't have is they didn't have Boris Karloff. And there's an anecdote that Boris Karloff didn't want to do that movie because he didn't want to cheapen the monster. There was also possibly he had a bad back by this point. Maybe he just wasn't up to it. But he thought the idea of a comedy monster movie was silly. Well, apparently the story goes that he heard from other cast members they had so much fun, he later kicked himself for not making that movie. And he went on to actually do 2 Abbott and Costello movies. And it's very rare they brought a villain back. So it was actually good that Boris Karloff got another chance. But I gotta tell you, it's funny. You mentioned the early days. As I'm sure all of you know, one of my earliest memories when I was a kid. My father worked very long hours when I was a kid, but he was always home on Saturdays. Sometimes hungover, but always home. And we would watch Saturday morning cartoons. And then after Saturday morning cartoons, it wasn't Shock Theater. I believe it was called just Creature Feature. But there was a local. This was in New York. There was a local horror show that showed horror movies every Saturday afternoon. And that was my first exposure to the actual classic horror films. The Hammer horrors, science fiction, like Atomic Submarine. I remember Atomic Submarine from when I was like 4 years old, but I didn't know the name of it. Do you have any movies you have to go through to find Atomic Submarine when you don't know the name?
I do now.
No, yeah. But as far as the Universal monsters go, I gotta tell you, my parents too got divorced right around 72. And I was living with Mama Thrash, and she had a friend whose name eludes me. Oh God, I wish I could remember. I think his name was Howard. But as a kindergartner, somehow I got stuck in my head that he reminded me of Count Dracula. And this guy was so cool. He played up on it. He goes, "That's because I am Count Dracula. I'm in disguise, but I'm living here." And he created this like whole like backstory about how he really was Dracula. We would watch horror movies together when he was over, and he was like an expert on Universal horror, and he would tell me all the stories of the movies I hadn't seen, because there's always ones that you never see, but it kind of fills in the gaps. He knew all the backstories. He was a super guy. Sadly, we moved to Cape Cod. I lost touch with him, but he's the one who gave me my love of Universal horror films. In fact, he gave me 2 gifts before I left. They were model kits. Dan, you've done those old model kits. I forgot the name of them, but they were like really popular when we were kids. It was like this one company.
But I actually had 2 different sets. I had the really good models, that come in the box where you had to glue each little piece together, and then you had to actually paint them and everything. Just complete construct. The ones that were featured in the Salem's Lot movie that the kid were putting together, and I had that same set he did. His little master set. And he actually used the cross from Dracula set to fend off the vampire in the room scene.
But yeah, he gave me 2 of those. He gave me 1 for Count Dracula, and 2 that shows how well the guy knew me, Godzilla. And I was like, and it was funny too, because do you remember glow-in-the-dark plastic was kind of a novelty at this point, and the kits always had like 1 card of glow-in-the-dark accessories. So if you wanted Godzilla's head to glow, or Count Dracula to have glow-in-the-dark bats in the background, you had the option of adding that to the set. So yeah, this guy created my enduring love of Universal monster movies.
The little glowing bats from the Dracula one actually made it with me up until like the 90s before I finally lost them. Everything else was gone, but I still had them glowing little bats.
Yeah, so you remember those? Yeah, those were awesome. Those were awesome. Before I went to bed, I would hold them in front of my lamp for like 15 minutes to see how long I get them to stay glowing before I fell asleep. Wow, you know, in the 90s, that's crazy.
When I said there were 2 different kinds, the one that everybody talks about is the ones you had to glue together, the expensive, fancy ones. But there actually was a snap together, cheaper model of it. And I like the snap together ones because they only cost 99 cents. And if they got broke, you just go get another one. You could actually
Gotcha,
play with
gotcha.
them. You could have action with them.
And they were easier because they snapped together, as
Yeah.
opposed to the glue. You had to like sit there like an idiot holding the two pieces together.
And when you were playing Frankenstein, it was really cool because as you went, you could snap him together.
I remember my grandfather, who had about 15 strokes over the course of my childhood, got the last rites like 4 different times. It got to the point where we thought the man was never actually going to die. Sadly, he did, but that's another story. Rest in peace, Grandpa Jim. But one time he had a stroke, and we were visiting him in the hospital, and there was a gift shop, and I walked by with my uncle, and there was a little wind up Frankenstein, and he bought it for me, and I had that for years. I love my little Frankenstein. I called it the Frankenstein monster, not Frankenstein's monster. Frankenstein monster.
Okay. Yes.
It's really hard for me to pick one of the Universal monsters to be my favorite. It really is, because I love them all equally. Even the Gill Man, the creature from the Black Lagoon. I like him. I like him just as much as I like Frankenstein or the Wolf Man. But if I had to pick one, once again, of all of them, my favorite would have been Dracula. For some reason, I was always drawn more to the vampires than the other monsters.
I can see that because he's just so genteel and cool, and the others are kind of. Well, I mean, Lawrence Talbot, when he's in human form, is a normal person. When he's a wolfman, you can't really interact with him. You can interact with Dracula, and in The Bride of Frankenstein, he talks, but he's work now, sleep later. He's not really a conversationalist. So yeah, the Dracula is always the most interactive of the Universal monsters.
To me,
I can see that.
To me, with Universal's old classic monsters, dude,
Mm-hmm.
the tear in my eye, the saddest thing. What's the saddest thing you can say about them movies?
That they're old and they don't make them like that anymore.
They're older than me. That's rare. But the saddest thing is Bela Lugosi only plays Dracula twice. I wish we had 6 movies with Bela Lugosi as Dracula. Don't care what he was doing. Don't care if he was sitting in the castle writing a letter. Just wish we had more of that.
Yeah, he is it Tesla he plays in Mark of the Vampire? It's not Dracula. It's a vampire, but it's not. And in Plan 9 from Outer Space, he's just Dr. Ghoul.
Yeah.
And he goes around like this.
And the movie ain't even him, it's the dentist.
Yes, you're right. Who was like 6 inches taller than he was. But he is at least in the movie. But yeah, of course, I got to tell you, my favorite Count Dracula, don't hate me, isn't Bela Lugosi. Christopher Lee narrowly nudges Bella. Fine as Bella is, I think Christopher Lee, in my opinion, when I think Count Dracula, I think Christopher Lee.
I can't put Christopher Lee against Bela Lugosi. To me, that's not fair because they are just 2 different eras in time. For the era of the 40s and 50s, that kind of movies back then, Bela Lugosi's Dracula. He is the classic Dracula. He is the one who started it. But when you get past that and you get into the 70s, then you get where you can't deny that Christopher Lee was the 70s Dracula.
Yes, 60s really.
That's only because of the crappy competition he had. Like
I know,
you see,
Frank Langella.
Dracula versus Billy the Kid.
It's funny you mentioned that.
Blackula.
John Carradine plays a vampire more than Bela Lugosi.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. John Carradine's Dracula.
John Carradine is Dracula. Crazy.
Okay, now that would be cool. I love John Carradine. So.
Oh, he was Dracula in Dracula versus Billy the Kid. and does it in a couple other movies as well.
Yeah.
Well,
And he wears it. Hey, he wears a big tall top hat like Harold was wearing today.
based. Now I have to see that for sure. I'm sure it's all very classically good and all that.
Here's a little factoid about Christopher Lee. He's the only person to play Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Mummy. He played all three.
Nice.
Crazy. Steve, how's it going? Oh, and I saw Big Guys 45 was out there. Hey, Big Guys 45, good to see you.
No, we got Life and we got Sparky, we got
What?
Indy.
Lon Chaney never played the Mummy, did he? Lon Chaney Jr.
No.
No,
He
he did not.
only played the Wolfman. Big Guys.
I actually thought he played Dracula in a movie or something.
Not to my knowledge. Not to my
I
knowledge.
could be wrong.
He was in vampire movies, but he never played one.
Ah.
Oh. He was in Spider
Okay.
Babies too. He was great in
Oh
that.
God, I saw that too. I saw that recently for some reason.
I think the 60th anniversary came up. That's probably why. Would have been 60 in 20 this year. Yeah, I believe
earlier
this
this year. I
anniversary.
think I sat through that movie for some reason or another that I can't remember. I sat through a few movies this year that normally wouldn't have been on my list to watch. I rewatched Band of Brothers and realized it wasn't as good as I thought it was the first time.
Really?
And I regret rewatching it.
Mrs. Thresh actually went to high school with one of them.
Really?
That big guy.
Dunna. I can't think of the guy's name off the top of my head, but yeah, he was in Band of Brothers.
One of the actors, not one of the original people.
No, one of the actors. One of the actors.
Oh, you watched her, no. Looks like a guy. He must have married an older lady.
Her father was a World War II veteran. Her father was, but
Yeah,
he's
my
on-
father was.
My mom's
My
dad.
dad was way older than my mother.
He would have had to have been.
Like way older.
Same thing with Mrs. Thresh. They're both gone now, but her father was substantially older than
And
her.
that's one of the reasons I think my dad, didn't live longer into my adulthood is because he was so old. When I was a teenager, he was already in his 60s.
Wow.
Yeah. Plus, he had to deal with the cancer situation, and he passed away. It was cancer that got him.
Ooh, I did not know that. Sorry, man. God rest.
Catcher's the worst. Ugh.
So,
But in his dying day, he swore up and down vampires was real.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, kidding.
Said as a kid in Romania, he had encountered vampires. There you go.
Yeah.
Your father was from Romania?
Excuse me?
Your father was from Romania?
He was from Italy, but he had lived in Romania for a while.
Oh,
Good evening.
As a
So
child.
very cool.
Hmm.
Wow. Wallachia. Oh, actually, I just thought of something. Give me well, see if you count this. Okay, Boris Karloff played Frankenstein, obviously, right? He also played a mummy. With me so far? He's in Black Sabbath. He plays a Vertilac, which is a form of vampire. Do you count it, or do you still give it to Christopher Lee only? Oh, hey, Snark says.
I give it to him.
We'll give it to
When
him.
you said Black Sabbath, I was trying to think, well, what does he do? Play drums? And
No, it's the three stories, and the third
I
story.
know it's a movie called Black Sabbath, but when
Yeah.
you said Black Sabbath, that didn't click in my mind. I was thinking about the band, and I was wondering, did he play drums?
Now I'm with you. Took me a second. I was answering your question before I listened to your whole line and realized it was a joke. Sorry.
When I make a joke nobody gets, I go over your head.
Make better jokes.
I do that a lot because nobody really gets my jokes.
We'll do 10. All right,
I mean,
take
get
two.
offended by
Action.
them. Some people get offended by them.
I don't offend easily. I offend as in the sense of I offend other people easily. I myself do not get offended easily. You got to really work at
Okay. Back to vampires and back to Dracula.
it.
I digress.
What else is new? What else
So
is
to
new?
me, outside Christopher Lee being the 70s essential Dracula, and Bela
60s.
Lugosi being the original classic Dracula, there's been 1,000 other Dracula performances that we could criticize or critique. But of all of them I've seen, flashing back through my mind, of good performances of Draculas I liked, or people who played Dracula and slaughtered it. The one that I liked the most, the one that I think is really like, hey, that was the good Dracula, was Frank Langella's Dracula.
Really?
I think in 1979.
Oh,
And
I remember it. Yeah.
to me, I love this Dracula movie. I think it's a lot better than all the other Dracula movies they've made over the years. And even better than that new one with the, I'm not even going to say what I think the Dracula in that last one looked like, but it was torture. Sure,
I
torture.
honestly, I think the Frank Langella version, that might have been the first movie I remember him from. Of course, I was a kid at the time. But I think that was the first movie I remember Frank Langella actually being in. So I mean, I certainly do remember it. I don't remember anything about it, but I remember seeing it when I was a kid and thinking, "Oh, cool, vampire."
What I really liked in that movie, if you ever get a chance to recheck it out, definitely rewatch it, is how well they make the practical special effects look and how it's just not over the top. It's a vampire, classic Dracula story, classic Dracula movie with a really good looking Dracula that plays the part real well. Actually had a little feeling to it.
Nice.
Excellent. Have either one of you seen the movie Rabid?
Yeah, I have.
I would have almost guaranteed you have, but
Yeah,
you
I love
haven't
that
seen
You
it.
can guarantee I haven't, and you
You
can guarantee he has. Those are pretty good.
Oh yeah. By the way,
Yeah, and we all know
there's
why.
certain scenes from that movie that nobody should ever show on YouTube because you will get a copyright strike. Trust me, I know.
Gee, I wonder
Dan
how
said
you know
so.
that.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I think she was a form of vampire too.
Well, in a form, certainly yes, but it was so funny because everybody remembers Marilyn Chambers for being on the cover of the Ivory Snow box. Everyone knows that, and I guess she did some other movies as well. I'm not familiar with those, but Rabbit. Oh, someone actually asked me recently if that was her Cronenberg's first film. It was not. He made like 3 or 4 before, but that was his first attempt at true horror, and I got to tell you, I remember watching that. I watched that movie because I was probably, I don't know, 14, 15, and Stephen King did someone asked him for his Halloween film list. This is back when video stores were like a thing, and it said, check out for Halloween, check out your video store for any of these titles. And Stephen King gave a top 10 list of his favorite holiday films. And I'm like, but Stephen King, it's good enough for me. And I had heard about this movie called Rabid, and I saw it, and I was like, oh, wow. And the crazy thing about it, it's not just a vampire movie. It's a vampire movie slash pandemic movie. So it's even more relevant today than it was when I saw it 40 years ago. Well, 40 minimum, 40 easily. So it's actually a really slick film, and she's actually a surprisingly good actress in it. And if you watch closely, it's like, oh yeah, he was in this, and oh yeah, that guy was in that, and oh yeah, that guy was in this. There's a lot of like supporting actors, mostly from Canada, um, because it's a Canadian film. But if you haven't seen it, I can't say highly recommend it because as we were just discussing, it's a little intense in some places. But
Well,
for the
since we're
true
going to
fan,
cover different kinds of vampires, let me bring up I've always considered this because it's actually based on a novel called The Space Vampires. And I'm going to bring up Life Force because it's the other movie that got me a copyright strike when I tried to show some of it. Yeah, do not show the trailer for that one on your channel or you will get in trouble. But it was worth it. Great movie, and I really liked the movie a lot. But they're a different kind of vampire. They're the ones that feed on the energy of the body and just drain people up into little old prunes when they suck the energy out.
Wow.
And the girl in that, her name is Matilda May is her name, if I remember correctly. Something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
Something like that. Yeah, she's
I
the
can't
cutie.
remember that guy that played in it right now. I can't remember his name. He played Charles Manson.
Oh, yeah. All I can remember now was Patrick Stewart's in it, and
He kissed that guy. Oh my God.
Bill Ningy, Bill something or other. God, English actor who's been in everything.
Maybe somebody in chat will Google Live for us and tell me who. Steve Rail's back.
Oh,
Hmm.
Steve
Rail's back. Rail's back. I remember because in the interview, Patrick Stewart said that he was his first on-screen kiss.
Brilliant.
And I said, I don't think I would have told nobody that.
We told everybody now.
Oh, hey, Sydney. Oh, and
right,
thank you,
you would,
Superplex, for confirming. Thank you.
Mm.
Excellent. But
Okay.
yeah, no, I always thought that film was kind of. It reminded me of one of the Quatermass movies. It was later redone as 5 million Years to Earth, I believe it was
Oh, I
called.
love them movies too, especially the one with them giant grasshoppers.
Yeah, that was 5 million Years to Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one about the Martians who decide they're going to create a colony on Earth, but they have to modify the life forms. Yeah,
that's one of the movies we used to watch on Shot Theater on Sunday afternoon.
Oh yeah,
over and over again, every year, 2 or 3 times. Because they had that certain run of like 50 or 60 movies. They played a lot. Hardly ever got anything different than them same 50 or 60. And after 4 or 5 years, you've seen them all a few times. Once in a while, they'll slip something new in there, like the thing with 2 heads or that movie about them frogs. But mostly it's just old black and white original classics.
Both of those movies had Ray Milland in them, by the way.
No. I like both of them.
It's just funny you mentioned that because both had Ray Milland. I'm like, we should do a Ray Milland tonight.
Yeah, that sounds like some. Well, I wouldn't know about all Ray Milland.
No, but we already have 2. You could throw in Panic in the Year Zero, and you could throw in The Man with X-Ray Vision. That's 4 movies.
One where it's the end of the world, and him and his family go into the mountains to survive.
Panic in the Year Zero.
Is that
Frankie
it?
Avalon plays the son. Yes,
I can't remember the name of that movie, but I remember him being in it.
That's one of the first post-apocalyptic films.
I think I've seen all post-apocalyptic films.
I've seen most of them. Maybe not all, most of them.
You know, there's been quite a few other. Well, let's see, we're moving along pretty good, but there's been quite a few other vampire movies that didn't involve Dracula or a classic Universal monster. You know, I can think of stuff like Lost Boys and Bright Night right off the rip. That are Bordello of Blood with Dennis Miller. This vampire movies that you, from Dusk to Dawn especially, are movies that you just really love, and they're really great vampire movies, but they're not from the Universal line. They're not 50 stuff. They're more modern.
I saw Fright Night on Halloween at a midnight movie when I was actually still in high school. I don't know how I got permission to do it, although I was already going to see the Rocky Horror Picture Show at that time anyway. But me and some friends, we all went to see Fright Night, and I fell in love with that movie. I mean, everyone in it is at their best. We were talking about it earlier today. The greatest thing about it too, by the way, is it tapped into that whole 80s spirit of nostalgia, because one of the main subplots behind it is this whole Peter Vincent, who is effectively Peter Cushing, and he is in those. He's playing Van Helsing in all those old Hammer horror vampire movies, and then you have that with the modern take on a modern vampire who gets sustenance by calling prostitutes, and it's a really slick movie. And don't laugh at me. I still have a copy of the soundtrack on vinyl. It has a really,
cool,
really amazing soundtrack, and most of it's on YouTube, but I still have a copy in record form.
Wow.
Records are cool.
I've got a bit of vinyl. Most of my vinyl is like LP versions of old classic radio shows like the Green Hornet or Dick Tracy or stuff like that.
Oh, nice.
I got a lot of record recordings from of old TV shows or old radio shows. Actually, one night we'll do them, and I'll take the 500-pound box down and go through a few of them.
Sweet.
Oh, Indy brought up an excellent point. Friday Night came out in the summer. Yes, it did. But a local theater used to show midnight movies, and so on Halloween they would, even if they weren't first run, they would get these movies to show on Halloween. I think another screen was showing Friday the 13th, and another one at that night was showing Pieces, the Italian horror film, which is actually filmed in Boston, or at least Massachusetts for some reason. But if you haven't seen Pieces, that one's an L. Yeah.
That's something I really love about the place I live is a little small town. I mean, we're talking closest thing you can get to the forest without actually being there is where I grew up. You know, the next step over 3 miles away was deep woods. So in this little town, there wasn't nothing to do much. But the little town right next to us, walking distance, called Williamston, they had a theater called the Osteen. And they showed just like every other theater in the world, it had one big screen and held about 150 people. And every side, you know, it's like every movie place in the world, people went there and watched regular movies, you know, whatever was out. I remember seeing Smokey and the Bandit in there on a Friday night.
Sydney, would you say? Oh, sorry.
Excuse me?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
But what they did round about September 1st when Halloween was coming up, every weekend they had dollar movies. And they would go back and pick out some old classic movies like The Fly or the American Werewolf in London was one of the ones they showed. They'd go pick out a movie that was popular or a horror movie that was popular a couple of years ago or 20 years ago, and they'd show it for $1. So you got to have the big screen experience on a movie you probably would have never seen in the theater. Like I remember seeing The Blob on a big screen. And it just kind of made you look around under the seats. I remember seeing this movie called Deadly Eyes about these rats. And I remember saying, hey, we're sitting in a theater watching a movie called Deadly Eyes about giant rats in a theater known to have rats running around the floor eating the popcorn.
Great.
So that kind of bugged me out a little bit because that theater did once in a while get a rat in there and you'd run up and steal your popcorn.
Ew.
Yeah.
Beyond ill, it's like double ill.
It was a hillbilly theater in a small town. And matter of fact, after a while, after I quit going there, I heard it got the nickname the Rat Palace. I heard the rats would take your whole popcorn box off. It shut down after a while, though. I quit going there. I don't like rats.
It's like in World War I, where they used to hang the meat in bags from the rafters so the rats wouldn't get it. And the rats learned to crawl along the wooden beams so they could get to the bags of meat like squirrels. Not that squirrels eat meat, but I'm sure they would. Oh, and I'm sorry, I was speaking stream of consciousness earlier, Danny. I saw Cindy said she tried to get into Fright Night and they wouldn't let her. She was 17. I go, it was rated R, 16 and above. They shouldn't have given you a static. I'm sorry, Cindy, but it was a good movie. Let me clue you in. But yeah.
When I was 13 years old, I was over 6 foot tall. Nobody ever questioned me about getting in no movies too much.
You were 6 feet when you were 13?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I was 6'4", and by the time I was 12, 13, I was easily 6 foot.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I'm 5'6 3/4. I'm just under 5'7", but I was pretty much the same height I was when I was 12. At one point I was like the tallest kid in my class, but then I stopped growing.
I was all grown in 8th grade. So
the funny part is all my brothers call me Tiny.
Really?
Oh.
It's because I'm the little run of the family. I make the joke because I'm the only one that's not Nephilim. Some people will get that.
Yeah, some people get that.
Tracy's out there, she'll get that.
Bible scholars. So, favorite vampire movie other than Dracula? You said your vote is going to be the other than Dracula, because you said the Frank Langella, he is Dracula. But what's your favorite non-Dracula vampire movie? Is it? Would you say it was From Dusk Till Dawn?
I actually I like From Dusk to Dawn a lot, and there's a couple of dance scenes in there that almost makes it a winner. But what's the other? I'm gonna go with Lost Boys, probably for the most modern vampire movie that's really good. That's not Dracula.
Lost Boys is a great pick.
Boys.
Lost Boys is a great pick. And it has a really
probably not the best choice, but to me, I like Lost Boys a lot.
Well, it's one of those quintessential 80s movies where when you watch it, you're like, oh my God, this is such an 80s movie. It's like Repo Man. It's like when you're watching it, oh my God, this is so 80s. The hairstyles are all 80s, the fashion's the 80s, the music is all 80s.
But once again, let me point out that I really like Fright Night.
That is
really like Bordello of Blood. I like Dennis Miller's performance in that movie a lot, better than everything else about it.
It's a great movie.
And I have to give, even though it goes back before the 80s, I think, I don't know, it might have been 79, 80. The Salem's Lot TV movie with David Soul. I thought that for a TV thing was probably better than some of the crap in theaters.
That was amazing. I love that when I was a kid, and I think it was 79. That sounds right to me.
79, I think. I'm not sure on that.
But if I remember correctly, wasn't it delayed for some reason? Wasn't it supposed to come out, and then there was some production problem, and it didn't come out until like a year later?
I don't know. I just know it was on TV, and I watched it, and I was like, for a few days there, it was all one night. It was on parts, like 3 nights.
Yes, it was.
And I remember them were 3 nights of like, oh my God, this is so awesome.
And Lance Curran is the boy in that. For those of you who probably remember him from James at 15.
Yeah. Even though Lance Kerwin's in it, it's still a good movie.
Mrs. Thrash had such a crush on him when she was a kid.
So what do you think, Sarah? Did you ever see the Salem's Lot TV thing?
No, I did not. I know of it, but I never saw it. See, y'all got to remember, okay? Me growing up, my parents were very religious, okay, Mormons, right? So I didn't get to watch a lot of things because everything was, about the devil. Sorry, I'm trying to play catch up. Okay, I swear.
Yeah. I had this same conversation with Dave Sunstorm before. He grew up the same way, and that's why he knows all about Andy Griffith and Mayberry and everything.
Well, I fortunately know about Star Trek, so I'm slightly cooler. Okay.
It's funny because Dave told speaking of vampires, Dave told this amazing story about he used to watch Dark Shadows, and he used to watch it with his mother, but that was like a major no. Like his father would have been like and there was one time he got really, really scared. He woke up, he had a bad dream, and he admitted that he watched Dark Shadows, and he's like, "Who did you watch it with?" And he goes, I couldn't knock my mother out. It's a really great story that he actually stood by. His father found out that he watched the show, but he never said that his mother let him watch it. And it's funny because years later, I guess my grandmother, my father's mother, loved Dark Shadows when it was in first run. And I remember I would have been about 8 or 9 at this point. A local TV station was showing it in rerun. And I remember watching it with her. I would come up for a visit, and her and I were watching it together. And I'm like, this is a great show. And she's like, yeah, and this is the funny part, though. Yeah, but they don't show the episodes in order. And I didn't care because it was just a cool show. Well, yeah, you get it. It was just a really cool show with cool, strange happenings. It's a soap opera. And if you don't watch a soap opera in order, it makes absolutely no
Right.
sense.
Like Baywatch, right? We used to watch that or tried to watch that when it was out, right? But they aired everything so out of order, and then they didn't release things and all kinds of weird things happening. So every week we went to go watch it, we're like, wait, I don't remember that from last time. Wait, I don't remember that from last time. So I never knew what was happening there. And later on I find out that they just say, well, I don't know numbers over there. And I'm like, I guess not. Crazy.
Does anybody out there remember there was actually a reboot? And I say reboot because it's the days before we had the
The Dark Shadows 2004.
No. Before that, this is like from 91,
I saw that movie. It was
92.
Okay. Oh,
There was a
I'm
Dark
not talking
Shadows.
about the movie with Johnny Depp. I'm talking about the reboot series. Like it lasted like 8 episodes.
Well, I'm going back to the 90s, and I believe what was his name? Why am I asking you? But it was actually it was weird. It was set in New England, and it involved time travel, where you could go back and forth between the time of Barnabas and present day, and they were going to burn this one girl as a witch, and it ended on a cliffhanger episode. But I'm like, it came out right after Twin Peaks, and all the girls I knew at the time loved Twin Peaks, and they were like, this is going to be when Twin Peaks ended, they go, this is going to be our new show, but they killed it. But it was actually, I thought it was pretty good.
I think I saw that. I think I saw some of that. I never liked none of the remakes of Dark Shadows. The best thing they done was the movie with Johnny Depp that even come close to being halfway entertaining, and it was not what I liked.
I never saw it. I heard
it.
he was trying too hard to make it a spoof. He was trying too hard to be funny.
I get that. What else can you do with Dark Shadows 40 years later besides do a kind of a spoof?
Oh, well, my mom told me about it 40 years later, so that was fun.
I remember when I was a kid, like 7, 8 years old, we hurried. We almost ran from school so we'd make it home before Dark Shadows come on.
That's what my mom said. She'd watch that
for a year and a half. We was like every day trying to get home to watch Dark Shadows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As a matter of fact, Dark Shadows is on Roku TV. No, it's Tubi. It's on Tubi right now. Maybe Roku. I'm not sure.
I think I got a lot of it on DVD.
We are talking about the same program, Indy, because he said 2004, and this is from the early 90s.
Well, no, he was talking about a TV series. I talked about the movie, and you talked about the original. So
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's 3 different incarnations. Of
3 different dimensions of Dark Shadows. Brought to you by Sarah. Right?
We're so smart, we don't know what we're talking about.
It's the best.
Dark Shadows rebooted 1991. There we go. Thank you. And it's Indy for the win.
Mm-hmm. And no matter who they are, which channel they're on, they're amazing chat because they know the
answer. Right? Hashtag facts. Yay to the chat. Hit that like. Then shares out. All right.
So where were we?
Yes. We were talking about how vampires suck. Yeah, that's one of my favorite scenes from Love at First Bite. Have you ever seen the movie called Love at First Bite?
Love at First Bite with Richard Benjamin and.
For those who don't know, it's a vampire spoof movie from the I think 70s,
late 70s, 79.
70s.
I might have seen it.
78, 79.
And the Von Helsing guy gets locked up in the mental institution, and his girlfriend goes to check him out to see if he's okay to come out, and he's sitting in the bed drawing a picture of Dracula, and right under the bottom he wrote "Dracula sucks," and it's like the funniest scene from a Dracula comedy movie ever. Now, have you saw that one? It's raw comedy.
I guess not. Is that the one where he's in a straitjacket
with George Hamilton? I can't remember the other guy though.
And he's reading a newspaper. And so he has to turn up the lips. So he's in a straitjacket and he's like, oh, and then he goes back to reading it. Because for some reason I thought that was the funniest thing in the world. It was Richard Benjamin, the guy who played Quark.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember.
Aaron Sherman or whatever his name is.
It's so hard to capture these actors' names from movies 30 years ago now.
George Hamilton plays the vampire, and also another great scene is Renfield is trying to blackmail this woman into doing something, and you're going to do this or else, and he puts a lunchbox on the table, and or else you eat your lunch in my office. No, my lunch is going to eat you, and it's this like King Cobra, and it was just hysterical.
It was one of my favorite comedy movies about vampires. Oh, the guy from Police Academy made a really funny vampire movie. Love it. Dracula, Dead and Loving It.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
See, I knew I would come up with something in the movie Virgin Scene.
Yeah. If it's comedy, I've probably seen it. Spoof movies, songs, TV shows.
I think I come up with something for you to talk about, Sarah. Tell us all about what you thought about that movie.
I haven't seen that in years. I can't remember everything offhand right now. I just know I've seen that movie, and it was super funny.
It kind of was like the Police Academy of vampire movies.
Yeah, it was great.
That's the one with Leslie Nielsen, right?
Squad of vampire movies.
Is Leslie Nielsen is the vampire in that?
Yeah.
I think of a different. It is okay.
Dracula with false teeth. Artie Johnson's like his little sidekick. It had some.
Artie Johnson was amazing.
It had a really good comic relief in it. It really did. I liked that movie a lot. I found it very amusing.
No, I just like Leslie Nielsen movies in general. He's amazing. It just like I said though, that one time I saw him. The first time I ever saw him doing a serious part was in MASH, and I'm like, any minute now, something funny, right? Come on, nothing. Worst episode ever. All right, there you go.
Well, it's so true, Leslie. That's why Airplane is such a funny movie. They went and they got all these leading men types from the 50s and then recast them. And the reason Leslie Nielsen works so well, he's the only one who played it totally straight. Robert Stack, Lloyd Bridges, that you could tell they were having fun with it. They were doing it tongue in cheek. But Leslie Nielsen, no, he played it totally straight, and that's why he became the funniest thing in that whole movie. But yeah, you watch like Forbidden Planet. He plays a badass in that. He usually plays these like badass characters, and it's so funny that he went from that to being this like slapstick comedian. It was great.
Yeah, a long career with lots of changes in it. Because I remember doing some serious roles in movies like where he's a cop and stuff.
But you're so right, Sarah. You expect him to say something funny because that's what we remember him as. We remember him as Lieutenant Drummond from Police Squad.
Yes. Yeah, so me growing up, I only saw him in funny things, and then one day somebody told me, no, before he did that, he was serious actor. I'm like, you're funny. That's funny. And then I saw that episode of MASH. I was like, oh no, they're serious. Gosh, dang, that's terrible. And then I saw other things with him like that. I'm like, no fall, no nothing, nothing.
How about his performance in Creep Show?
I didn't see that.
How could you not see Creep Show?
I don't have cable.
I
think it's on YouTube.
You don't understand.
It probably is, but when it was out and stuff, I
really and truly get that. She's the official movie virgin. Lots of these horror movies, she has no clue. And that's so cool that if we ever get to hang out, I'm going to have so much fun showing horror movies and tormenting her with my DVD collection.
Well, good. It sounds good.
Creep Show was like a game changer horror movie. It was like there was like before and after Creep Show. In fact, here's one for you. You know how? Of course, Sarah, I'm very sorry you haven't seen it, but it's done as a comic book, so they kind of stage it like that. In fact, there's a lot of the scenes has like exposition, like in a comic book panel. They were supposed to do that for the Warriors, but at the last minute, Terrence Hill changed his mind, so they didn't do it. But I thought it worked great for Creep Show. And yeah, the scene, the segment with Leslie Nielsen, he's playing opposite Ted Danson. And again, same thing. Ted Danson, nobody expect him to be playing Sam Malone from Cheers, and he's not. So you have these two comedic actors doing this very, very, very creepy role. It's very funny.
Nice.
Or not funny, I should say. It's funny, then it isn't funny.
Well, I just gotta say to life, it's not my fault, okay? Just all right, it's not my fault. I'll get there someday. I'll see it all. I swear, promise or something.
Start with the original Harold the Hatter performance called "London After Midnight."
I've heard of it. It's a lost film, so all I've ever done is seen a few stills.
I've seen a few clips from it that survived. Probably about 12 minutes, I think.
Wow.
And that was Lon Chaney Sr.
Yeah.
That was Lon Chaney Sr.
He wore that big, tall top hat, being the vampire creeping around London.
And he didn't just have fangs; he had like interlocking teeth, like a shark or something.
He was horrific looking for the time.
Well, he was Lon Chaney, Creighton Hull Sr. was the greatest makeup artist in his day. You guys ever see the movie about his life with Jimmy Cagney?
Mm-mm.
It's very interesting. Although he died of a stroke. Now, I don't know if you know this. One of the things about Lon Chaney Sr. that made him a great actor, both his parents were profoundly deaf. So when he was growing up as a kid,
so they weren't just deaf; they were profoundly deaf. Got it.
Profoundly, they couldn't hear it all. So he had to emote and was very expressive with his hands and his face. And so when he became, of course, it was a silent movie era, but he was very adept at portraying emotion and thoughts with his features. So he was perfect. He also knew sign language very well.
Sign language.
Because both his parents were deaf. The story goes that when he was dying from the stroke, he had a stroke. He could speak to his son through sign, and there's a great scene in the movie where he takes his makeup kit and it says Creighton Hull, and he adds Junior to it with his one good hand and gives it to him, and it's a great scene. It never happened. Apparently, that was completely made up by Hollywood, but it's a pity because it was such a great scene. But yes, that's how Lon Chaney Jr. learned his makeup techniques from his father.
I did not know that.
That's crazy.
I have a lot of anecdotes up here.
Well, that's a good place to keep them.
Some of them are even accurate. Ask Indy. Not all. Not all. But some.
Right, but they could just have Indy here to give us all the accuracy.
In fact, Indy, how much of what I just said was true?
He stopped Googling. He's like, I can't Google that much.
Indy doesn't Google. He has it all in here.
Yeah, she has it mind Googled.
I think I heard that Lon Chaney Jr. really didn't want nothing to do with horror movies, and he had tried his hand at doing everything but horror movies up until a point where he just couldn't make a living, and finally he took the role just to get paid and found out that that's what he was going to be, whether he wanted it or not.
That sounds right. That does sound right. Oh, here we are.
Where did Paz go? Some man with glasses is there. Superman.
Steve, with your life and said ending, you should. How much of what I just said was true? You should know from your channel as well.
I've come up with this theory where I think Tug is doing something to freeze you up on purpose. Just with you, because when you're on here, I noticed you ain't froze up or not one time. I'm beginning to have the Tug conspiracy theory.
I gotta tell you, I was really worried.
People be betting on when you freeze up. Now, but suddenly you freeze up at a certain time, and he's winning. Come on!
I froze up like 4 or 5 times today on his channel.
I know. I saw the conspiracy.
It's gonna because remember our first show, we had some technical problems. I go, if my show earlier today went that badly, I can only imagine what tonight was going to be. And knock on wood, so far so good. Although this is a true story. I actually tapped my table once, and I tapped it so hard that I jiggled something free, and actually ruined a feed. So I won't tap.
I'm all happy the show's been going so good. You know, when I try to do a show, a hurricane usually comes blow something away.
Dad's out there just flying in the air. Did you guys see this? He's like, leaves the internet.
I guess you look out your window and see a trampoline blowing by and go, Daddy must have been going to do a show today.
Emily wants to know, Pons and Dan, are we having trivia night?
Are we having? We're not having a trivia tonight.
No, Vaughn will be doing trivia next Sunday.
Next Sunday. It's
Sunday
gonna be
night.
Chris Christopherson. Chris Christopherson.
And I probably won't be there for that because I'm not a Chris Christopherson guy, except for that one movie where it was a vampire movie he was in called Blade.
Yes, I'm using StreamYard.
Yeah, see what I did there? See what I did there and segment it back into vampires?
Good job.
That's a trained professional right there.
Well played. Very well played.
What do you think about Blade? It's actually based on a comic book.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I'm actually racking my brains right now because Indy says, if you can tell me the actress in that skit from Creep Show, I'll be impressed, Thresh. And I'm trying to remember which sketch had a waitress in it. I remember the first one takes place in a creepy old house during a commemorative dinner. Is there a waitress in the garden party in the Crate? I don't recall a waitress in that. There's none in the Lonely Death of whatever the Stephen King one was. I don't recall a waitress. So Indy, I can't in this case, unless you can remind me of which sketch in question of which you are in reference.
Yeah, and if she was a vampire, it'd help.
A vampire waitress?
Vampire waitress.
But anyway, so
okay.
But yeah, Blade was pretty slick.
I've seen the first Blade, anyways.
I like Blade movies. I really do to a certain extent, but I think it was
Tracy.
Third one that had Triple H, the wrestler, in it, and the comic book team called the Night Stalkers, and I think that's probably my favorite movie of that bunch. More because I like the wrestler Triple H and his perfect vampire badass guy, you know.
Yeah. So I just thinking Triple H is doing vampire stuff. It's not a comedy, is it? It's not a comedy.
I didn't like the guy who finally wound up playing Blade, the new guy.
Yeah, Indy. I don't remember a waitress. I remember Leslie Nielsen and Ted Danson, and his Becky is the girl, and she's actually played. She was in another George Romero movie. She was in Dawn of the Dead. Actually, she plays the girl in that, but I don't recall her being a waitress. She's Leslie Nielsen's wife, who was having an affair with Ted Danson character. But is that what you were looking for? We could go with that. Her father was a horror TV host as well. But moving forward, I hope that at least covers the base, Indy. So
everybody wants you to know, Pons, they love your quizzes, okay?
Oh, they love my what?
Your quizzes. Just letting you know, everybody in chat saying that.
Yeah, I can't wait till next week when you're going to ask some questions. You got to start doing when we start with 5 questions for the panel or 5 questions for the chat or something.
Yeah, we could do something like that. That'd be good.
Oh,
there's only single one, guys, and we usually got everybody here at the same time, all working tech-wise at the same time. So we'll get there, okay? We'll get there.
I have no problem doing a 5-question quiz or something, or a little bit of trivia in the chat.
I'd love
to. If y'all do that, that'll be my chance to go smoke before the break.
Yep.
Show I'll have an out for 5 minutes.
There you go.
The next time I will do that. Next time I'll have a brief trivia quiz. And Indy, I see it was actress. I think I was reading without my glasses on. I saw a waitress. It was actress. And Gail Ross is the young lady. Galen Ross is the young lady's name. Thank you. And her father was a horror host. So, Indy, you and I are finally on the same page, and I doff my cap as always. And that explains that.
So who was your favorite? Who was your favorite TV comedy vampire? Grandpa Monster.
He was great. I love Grandpa the Monsters. He was great.
He was my favorite character of the Monsters. So.
Oh, Herman had to be my favorite character. Herman. There's one scene, and I get indulge me for just a second. I don't know if you guys remember the episode. They found out that Marilyn, she was having a school parents' night, but didn't invite her folks. And Herman's like, let's just ask her. And Lily's like, no, that'll embarrass her. I tell you what, at dinner tonight, I'll bring up the new cars that have come out this year. And then I'll bring up driving. And then I'll bring up driving to school. And then I'll mention school events. And then I'll mention parents' night. And then we'll find out why she didn't ask us. And Herman's like, love the plan. We'll really sneak it up on her. And then at dinner, Lily goes, so, Marilyn, what do you think about the new cars that came out this year? And Herman goes, and how come you didn't invite us to parents' night at your school? And I lost it. I absolutely lost it. It's like,
well, I always feel bad for her because she was the playing one, and they were always just like treating her like she had a disease. I always just thought that was funny.
Yeah, that was
It was this
very
TV
funny.
show that didn't last long. I think it lasted maybe 11 episodes before it got canceled. And it was called Cliffhangers. I don't know if you ever saw this show. I love this show. It's one of them shows I wish it never got canceled. But it had like three little different 20-minute things from three little 20-minute stories going on. One was about these cowboys in a lost city under a desert.
Yeah.
One was a vampire show. It was a Dracula thing they done, like a modern day Dracula. And it was this show was so good and such a great portrayal of Dracula going on in modern times. It really was a shame that show got canceled. Are you Googling
I remember
it?
Me, I'm not Googling anything. I'm hitting buttons.
Yeah, it was
I vaguely remember it. I vaguely remember that.
It probably come on when Sarah was 2.
Yeah, I'm a child. What do you want? Okay. Thanks.
How old are you, Sarah? Just for discussion.
I'm 42.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I'm 15 years older than you. I'm 57.
Yeah, everybody lets me know how much older they are than me. I got it. Dad's like a million years older than me. I don't know, something like that. I forget.
No, what did we decide? You're a year and a half older than I am?
Yeah, so he is Father Time up here. We got that. Okay.
Wait.
70s. Cliffhanger.
Grandpa's dozing off here.
Okay, it's from 1979.
Cliffhangers. Oh,
Who played in it? That's a whole different story.
Mercy.
All right. Somebody, Emily's daughter is younger than me. I'm like, somebody. I can read Emily. I know how that word is.
And here's the funny thing. Emily is still younger than I am. Not much, but younger.
Most people are younger than I am.
I've noticed.
And those that are usually in wheelchairs getting pushed around by their nurse. Wah, wah, wah.
Hey, I would love to live in a retirement home. All the green Jello I could eat, watching the Weather Channel sounds like paradise to me.
It is to the hurricane.
You can do that now.
Till the hurricane comes and takes the power away, and the Jello melts, and nobody comes by, and you have to throw your meat away. Sometimes being old sucks.
No, it does. It does.
My brother's 3 years older than I am, so there you go.
He's still
all
young.
my brothers are older than me, but one.
Well, who?
Okay, maybe 2.
Well, who then?
How many brothers do you have?
14 brothers and 2 sisters.
Gott in Himmel.
Step brothers, and my dad was married 3 times, and my mother was married multiple times. You wind up with a lot of step brothers and step family.
So I have one brother. It's crazy.
How many grandchildren do you have? Like 17?
Excuse me?
How many grandchildren do you have? You told me you had like a number 17. Of grandchildren. It is 17?
Yeah.
Wow. That was like a random guess. It really was 17.
So Dan has a little army, a generational army behind him.
The football team,
No, it's just straight up an army at this point.
That's crazy.
So I have 0 kids, 1 brother. Wow. Blonde, how many siblings do you have, or do you have kids as well?
I have a brother and a sister. both of whom live in North Carolina. One lives in Wilmington out on the coast. The other lives in Raleigh. They're doing okay. I checked with them after the
That's
storm.
good.
One daughter, granddaughter, one daughter and one granddaughter. That's it's the chain. And at this point, 3 nieces and nephews, all from
Oh
my
wow.
brother.
So Starkey, thanks, but no thanks. I have birds. That's what I chose. Okay, so I can put them in a cage and still walk away. I'm not sure your kids are adults, but birds. Okay, but thanks, Starkey. But if I need to borrow one, I'll contact you. I promise.
Okay, then.
All right.
That was a good joke.
72.
That was a good joke, but it kind of laid an egg.
What?
I said that was a good joke, but it kind of laid an egg.
But I'm bumped.
It happens. I ran a foul. Sorry.
But I'm bumped. Well, birds of a feather.
Yeah, and they flock together. It's crazy.
So any closing thoughts on vampires, Thrash?
Just that, like, again, I've pretty much grown up with them from when I was a kid to now. I'm, as you guys know, I'm vintage. I'm vintage all the way. I know there've been a lot of modern takes on the whole vampire saga. There was an episode of X-Files, which isn't really modern. That's about 30 years old now. That was a very good. But I'm pretty much your classic vampires, from the Universal to the Hammer horror. Probably Monster Club. Monster Club, which of course is an anthology, but it's a lighthearted anthology, and that's sort of my bracket. But again, there's really no wrong answer. That's the thing about the whole vampire lore. It fits perfectly. I mean, there are romantic vampire stories. There are horror vampire stories. There are comedy vampire stories. Whatever fits your wheelhouse, watch them and have fun. And they're the perfect monster for Halloween. Or in our case, Howl a month.
Exactly.
Howl a month.
I agree with everything you said, times 10. I almost forgot about bringing up the old TV show Monster Squad, which had the werewolf, Dracula, and Frankenstein solving mysteries in the 70s. I know seriously that because I live streamed it one night.
I was just going to say, I remember watching that on yours. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was something I covered on when I was doing live streams before.
With Congressman Fred Grady. He went on to go into the
little live streaming. I think I'm gonna do a fireside chat and stuff like that pretty soon.
Nice.
When I get done piling up the mountain of wood to burn.
I've seen that pile of wood. I can't wait. It's gonna be huge.
They're gonna be able to see that thing from space when I light it up.
Well, one can only hope.
Keep the vampires away.
And the Bigfoots and the aliens and the giant spiders. Do that all. Yeah. Watch out over there.
I put the video up today if anybody wants to watch it. Danny Dan versus the giant spiders. Probably from Mars.
It's also my community post as well.
It's inspired by Ziggy Stardust on the title from that one.
Nice.
That's the first thing I thought of when I saw that big spider was Ziggy Stardust and the spiders from Mars. This spider is big enough; it has to be from Mars. And I just had a UFO sighting before that happened. It kind of worked out that way.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know all the things happening before we go live to talk about this, and it's all spooky around you. It's all Halloween. You know, a few months back, you filmed what you thought was a full moon on a night of a full moon. That was pretty funny too.
Well, I got the full moon. Somebody texted me and said, "Like, hey, dude, ain't no full moon tonight." I said, "I'm looking at it, man, but it was a big brown thing of light in the sky. I thought it was the moon." So ain't no telling what I would have noticed if I'd been sober.
Right. Well, anyway, so I steal it and make a thing out of it. It's really funny.
The moon is always full in here.
It's cheese.
Now you got me thinking about how classic Monsters inspired so many cartoons, like
cereals, like Count Chocula,
Face the Werewolf. We had to do a whole show on that one day.
Definitely.
But David beat me to it.
We can still do one. We can still do one.
Yeah, we all do one.
Finish the conversation.
Hey, Tom.
But are we wrapping it up here tonight?
Yes, and I got to tell you, I've had so much fun tonight, guys. This was a blast.
Because we had planned on doing our show about, I think it was 75 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And that we're just coming up on 75 minutes now.
That's why I'm bringing it up, because that's our kind of our little quitting time.
All right, so after the outro, if you want to sit back and talk for a minute, you can. If not, whatever. Good night, everybody. Thanks for letting us come into your cell phones and computers and TVs and your brain.
Trails.
Bye. Because I hit the
Peace.
button right. Peace and chicken grease.
Show with puns and Dan in a TV flow. Geeks for sure with tales to tell. Every Sunday is pretty swell. Good times here, you'll want some more. Remember days you can't ignore. Kids and family, friends so dear. Join us now, the crew is here. On the artifact, save the world with Sarah at their side. Oh girl, Sunday's fun with joy and cheer. Flip side, flip, so revere. Shows from days gone by, epic moments never die. Internet was such a blast, fun with friends, let's make it last. Time to laugh and time to chat, geek out hard and that's a fact. Sarah here to add the spice, memories that feel so nice. Love the artifact, save the world with Sarah at their side. Oh girl, Sunday's fun with joy and cheer. Flip side, flip, so revere. Save the world with Sarah at their side. Oh girl, Sunday's fun with joy and cheer. Flip side, flip, let's all revere. These shows from days gone by, epic moments never die. Internet was such a blast, fun with friends, let's make it last. Time to laugh and time to chat, geek out hard and that's a fact. Sarah here to add the spice, memories that feel so nice.